Hello guys, welcome to Major's Garage. This is Suellio Almeida. I'm the crew chief for the Formula 1, Formula 3 and Formula 3.5. We're gonna see my lap here at Nurburgring. This is a race field, so the lap time was 1:28.995 with default weather conditions. So let's go straight away to the first lap, to the first corner, I'm sorry. So about the braking zone here, what I really do is worry a lot about braking on a straight line here. So we want to actually prepare that straight line by pointing the car very carefully before we start braking. As you can see, because this car is really fast and we're at like 321 kilometers per hour here, we can't really be on a perfect straight line from the beginning. So as you can see, I start braking, the car is still like turning a little bit, and I just correct it a little bit, but that's almost nothing. I'm really thinking about having more of a straight line, as straight as possible. And then I'm braking at 100% at the beginning, but then I'm immediately starting to slowly release, still on a straight line, because the speed goes down and we lose the downforce, and then we need to release the brakes slightly, not to lock up the tires. So as you can see, I even lock up a little bit here. That was a little bit aggressive, and then as I turn in here, this area is much easier to lock up the fronts because the track is actually falling. And as you can see, even when I'm not braking, even when I'm braking like say 5%, 3%, we still paint the track here, because as you can see, the tire is actually flying already here. So as you can see, because of the way that the corner is in terms of banking, even without brakes, you can see how the tire is just going over the track, and that's why it's so easy to lock up the front tires here, the inside front tire. So be careful with that. I actually was able to do a pretty good cornering like that here. As you can see, the car really paints a lot the track after the last update. You can see here how I'm not really close to the apex. This is actually optional. This car accepts a little bit when you use a little bit of an inside line here, but it's also quick if you go a little bit open like that, because the way the track is here is less aggressively changing in elevation. You also have a good amount of grip here. So getting back on the throttle here and trying to really bring the car as early as possible to the right here, so we can prepare for this next left-hander, and then slowly releasing the throttle as we turn in. And then as you can see, I'm just shifting the weight to the front slightly by releasing the throttle, and then I realized that I need a little bit more rotation, so I start loading the tires with 5%, 4% brakes, until I'm pretty sure that I can get back on the throttle and finish the corner without getting an off track there on the green. That's exactly here where we can actually go a little bit more without getting an off track, but we can actually bring the car, we need to bring the car outside of the curb before we start braking, because this curb makes the car lock very easily if you brake over it, so be careful with that. And then very patiently bringing the car to the inside here, and then trying to keep it on the inside. Even when you get back on the throttle, you can see how I'm really trying to keep the car to the left here, so I prepare this next right-hander. Then just lifting and really being careful with the throttle here, so you don't go too much over the traction limit. And the car may bounce a little bit after you come down here, you wait it to settle, and then you can go full throttle. So here I did not use the entire track. We can actually use a little bit more of this off track here. We will get an off track whenever the middle of the car, let's say this top of the car, goes right over this drain here to the left. So if we are to the right and very close to it, we don't get an off track. And also this is important here, it's even easier to get an off track. This was pretty close to getting an off track, so try not to put your tires over the screen here. Then for this next corner, we want to brake slightly hard, but not too hard and not for long. As you can see, I brake, but immediately I'm already releasing as I start turning in. So that's the maximum, and then immediately you can see my brakes coming down as I start turning. So I'm releasing as I turn in, I release as I turn in, but then I maintain a little bit. Then I can be a little bit back on the throttle in the transition between the corners. But pay attention how I'm not letting my car go too much to the right, because I already want to bring it to the left to prepare the next right-hander. So doing that, and then braking again for the right-hander here, and being very patient. We need to be very patient with this exit, so we don't get too early on the throttle and then have to correct it. So I want to get back on the throttle just once, and then of course progressively, because there's a lot of power in this car. And you can see that I even get a little bit of an oversteery moment there, but I was able to get away with it. Then for this next corner, we want to be really over the white line and braking on a straight line. As you can see, I'm actually parallel to the white line at the beginning of this slight turn to the left, but then I'm actually maintaining the car on a straight line as the white line keeps turning to the left. So I'm going far from the white line, just pointing my car to the middle of the track before I start releasing and turning in. Then I want to be very patient with the brakes and just try to turn, staying on the inside and thinking a lot about where is going to be a good exit where I can get back on the throttle in a way that my car will push itself to the outside on the left. As you can see, again, not going full throttle because the car has a lot of power, so I'm just really patient with that. Again, got a slightly oversteer there, but this one was healthier. For this corner, it's very difficult to do it flat out. I think for a race pace, it can be a little bit tricky to do it all the time flat out. So if you want to be a little bit safer, you can, when you get here, if you feel a little bit of an oversteer here, you can lift just like 5-10% of lifting. So let's say 90% of throttle, that will be enough to hold the car in place if you want to be a little bit safer. You can use this area here, not too much, maybe. I think that's good enough. You're not losing any speed by doing that. And also you can a little bit touch this one, so that there's no problem if you do that. On a race trim, I think it's easier to do this flat out. On a qualifying, it's really difficult, so be careful with that. And then for this left-hander, look how I'm really trying to put almost the middle of the car on the white line. So if I go a little bit more to the left, if the middle of the car is over to the right, if the middle of the car is over to the right of this white line, we get an off track. So I want to prepare the entry by just being almost aligned with the white line, but not necessarily over it, with the middle of the car, I mean. So I'm braking pretty hard here, and then releasing not too quickly. I kind of brake in a straight line for, let's say, 3-4 car lengths, and then I'm releasing to turn in. We want to be touching this curb but not the green, because this really makes the car upset and the car starts bouncing a little bit if you use it too much. So be careful with that. And I also want to get back on the throttle as early as possible here, but you need to be careful not to bring too much speed and go wide here, because this gives you an off track and really hurts the entry for the next corner. So I'm really trying to bring the car to the left here as early as possible. As I go on the power, as you can see, I'm really close to the white line. We need to touch the white line here to be perfectly aligned for a good arc for this right-hander here. So as you can see, we need to brake a little bit just to make the car point, and then try to get back on the throttle when you know that you can push the car to the left here naturally. Then we go for the hairpin, for the chicane actually. So my braking point here is the 100 mark. So as you can see, I'm basically punching the brakes to 100% as quickly as I can. when I want to have the full pressure whenever my car is just besides the 100. So if we see frame by frame, I'm actually starting to brake a little bit before, but that's so quick that if you really look at full speed, I'm basically braking exactly at the 100 mark. Even after braking like that, you need to really wait until the car stops. So as you can see, I'm braking for really a long time on a very straight line here, following the white line until I feel that I can start turning. So what we want here is to turn slightly late so we can cross this first entry a lot to the left here. As you can see, I slightly touched the higher curb here, and this is not ideal. This is definitely not ideal. I could be a little bit quicker here if I was not touching this curb, because it pushes you back to the middle of the track, but I got away with it. I was able to carry a good amount of speed anyways. And then you see how I'm trying to get back on the throttle at the first apex and then not releasing it anymore. I'm just lifting but never releasing again to 0%. So that's really important that we brake on a real straight line here, that we turn and we get back on the throttle here, not to release it completely anymore. So here, after this one, again, you want to be as close as possible without touching, without going over this higher curb here, and just managing the throttle until you go over these bumps. So you're going to always feel this. There are like 4 bumps here, so you really need to go after them before you go full throttle. And then we go for the last corner. So this last corner is a little bit tricky because there is a bump also on the entry, so we need to be careful with that and try to brake not too hard on the entry. Then we start to turn in, and we are also going to find some bumps here on the mid corner to exit here. So let's look for them. 1, 2, and then another one. So yeah, we have around 2 to 3 bumps here. We need to be aware of that before going full throttle. This car accepts well the bumps. So I think if you manage the throttle and be patient, wait for the bumps and know where they are going to be, you can get away with it and have a great consistency over them. So yeah, that was it. Thank you and see you next week. Bye bye.